Hello, welcome to Shepherd My Heart. Have you ever faced a crisis that brought great fear and seemed to require greater risk than you were willing to take? Esther faced such a crisis, and we can learn from her and how she responded. The crisis was that the Jews were facing annihilation because of Haman's decree, and Mordecai called on Esther to intervene with the king. Mordecai was in sackcloth and ashes at the king's gate, and Esther sent the king's eunuch to find out why. And here is Mordecai's response in Esther 4:8-9. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her and command her to go to the king to beg his favor and plead with him on behalf of the people. This frightened Esther because if she was not summoned by the king, this could lead to her death. There were two crises here. One was that all her people were to be annihilated, and the second was her very life. And she had a choice how she was going to respond. Was she going to retreat, or was she going to engage? Was she going to be willing to be used by God even when it was risky? She sent a message to Mordecai that how could she do this when she hadn't been summoned? And Mordecai responded in Esther 4:12-14. And he said, and they told Mordecai what Esther had said. And then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Herein is Esther's opportunity. In her crisis, Esther has an opportunity to serve. She responds to Mordecai and said, in following through verse 14, and I'm reading from the ESV version. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young woman will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. Esther's response was pray, fast, and go. She prepared herself to approach the king, risking her life to serve her people. How can we spiritually and practically prepare ourselves to serve those to whom we're called? How can we serve with boldness and grace? We have a beautiful example here of Esther. She experienced a crisis. She prepared to serve, and we see the results. She came into abundance. And we see in Esther 5:1-3 and 8:1-2. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace in front of the king's quarters, while the king was sitting on his royal throne inside the throne room opposite the entrance to the palace. And when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight. And he held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you, even to half of my kingdom." Here was favor that Esther received. She experienced a crisis. She prepared to serve, and she received the king's favor. She shared what Haman had wanted to do to the Jews, and that they were facing annihilation, and that these were her people. And through this process, it was come to light what Haman was trying to do. And the king ordered that what Haman had meant to happen to them, to Mordecai, would happen to Haman. And it says in verse 8, 1 through 2, on that day King Ahasuerus gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was to her. And the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. What was meant for harm was turned to blessing. Her abundance was used to serve people. We have an opportunity in our own crisis to find out how we can serve. How are we stewarding the abundance God gives us through influence, finances, and opportunities? What an awesome way to look at crisis. To, instead of being so inward focused and tunnel vision on what our situation is, let's ask God, how do you want me to serve others through my crisis? My sister had a hard time getting pregnant, and for years she tried every means to try to have a child, and she was not able. So one of the things she did, because she was not able to have children, she went to a crisis nursery, and the babies there had no one to hold them. And she would go and she would sit in a rocker and she would hold these children. And what an awesome testimony of, in the crisis, being of service. Today she has twin boys, and it is a miracle how God worked that out in so many ways. God has a place for you to serve in your crisis. And my challenge to you is to find the place where He wants you to serve. Father, in all that makes up my world, let your will be done. For all I believe, for the infinitely more you have for me, let your will be done. God bless you.